Looking at the proportions that I drew, the engine size is a little bit off. I always forget how big magnums are. Welcome back to the mining channel. If you're new here, I hope you enjoy my content. In the summertime, I'm gonna have a lot of gold mining videos. But for now, it's the winter time, so I'm stuck building stuff and maintaining my equipment. On today's video, we'll be building a trommel. I'll split this up into 2 episodes. The first episode will be the main frame, the bulk of it. The second episode will be all this tiny little knickknacks that has to go along with building these. So enough talking, let's get into the shop. Throughout the video, I'm gonna have a tally on how much time and money I put into this trommel. I personally love building stuff out of scrap steel. Both my 6-foot trommel and my 4-foot trommel are all built from stuff that I got from the scrapyard. So I believe I have the majority of the steel in my scrapyard out back. We're gonna be using a 36-inch barrel by 16 feet long. This should give me the capability of doing around 20 to 30 yards an hour with the proper screen section. I'll be drawing this trommel out on poster paper on a 1 to 12 scale. That meaning, for every inch that I draw out on this paper, equates to 1 foot in real life. Okay, let's start drawing this thing out and get at it. You know what, nobody wants to sit here and see me draw all day. Let's just do this the quick way for you guys. Okay, let me show you guys what we have. With the trommel on flat ground, the barrel is set at 3/4 of an inch per foot, and the hopper is set at 3 inches per foot. This should let lots of the bigger rocks tumble down and not get stuck in the hopper. The good thing about having a 1 to 12 scale is any angle that is found on this piece of paper, I can literally transfer to the trommel in real life, and that's my angle. Before we haul some steel over, just need to do a quick plow job. It'll take 2 seconds. So with the bulk of the steel hauled over, let's do a quick tally. We're about 2 hours in on this project and about $800 for all this. The barrel costed me about $300, the I-beam another $300, and then the square tubing, $200. To cut all this steel, we're gonna be using my Hypotherm 1000 plasma cutter. This machine will save me hundreds of dollars, if not thousands of dollars on this project to go through and cut all this steel up. So the first piece that we start off with is the lower skid. Holding a ruler up to it, you can see it's at 18.5 inches. So we need to find 2 pieces that are at least 18.5 feet long. So with the 2 I-beams pulled out, we need to get this thing sitting level. My property is on a real bad slope. So what we need to do is bring the one end up, get it leveled this way also, and then we'll be able to start cutting them to length. So what I've done is cut some dunnage in some wedge shape. We'll be able to go in, hammer these things below the I-beam, and raise that I-beam up. By pounding a wedge in on each side, I can actually control the twist of the I-beam. That way I can get it perfectly straight up and down. You take a look at that, she's perfectly level from tip to tip. With the I-beam sitting level, we can do our length, width, and then the final measurement is our diagonal. I'm gonna call that good enough. To move one side a 1/16 of an inch isn't even worth it. Now that we have the I-beams laid down and all measured up, we'll start cutting this guy up and do our crossbars and uprights. So here's part of the uprights. What I had to do is actually cut off about 6 inches of the one side. That frame was a little bit too wide. I want to make this thing 80 inches wide so it can fit on any standard car trailer. So to tack that guy on, we're going to use the 400D Miller welder. This thing is a stick welder, but if you have this attachment, you can actually MIG off of it. Things are quite handy if we're working outside and having to move around a lot. Here's a hose going into my shop, and that's where my C25 tank is. This hose is probably about 50 feet long, so I can go all over the property and not have any issues. Okay, this thing is perfectly squared up, 80 inches on the outside, on the top and the bottom. With part of the back structure done, time to move on to the front. Okay, so we got the second one tacked on. This is actually the front side here. The first piece I put on was the back side. The next piece that I put on is gonna be the top. I have to go to my piece of paper, find my angle, and trim that to where it's supposed to be. With my angle finder on the piece of paper, I just adjust it accordingly, and I can go transfer it to that upright. Okay, we have the pieces pulled out for the horizontal structure, just need to cut them to length. So on this end, I just clamped a piece of angle iron so the beam can sit right on top, just due to that angle. That side sits relatively flat and it'll cap right on the top. Okay, let's see if we can get this first try. As Gold Rush says, steady, steady. With one of the horizontals up there, I need to try and get the other piece cut, put up there, and tacked into place before it gets dark. See if we can get this one on as smooth as the first one. It's like I've done this before. With the first day coming to an end, I'm going to spend a couple hours and weld up the progress that we made today. So with the first day coming to an end, let's do a tally. I spent about 8 hours getting the skids in place, getting the uprights and the horizontals, including a little bit of welding. Tomorrow, I'm hoping we can get some of the crossbars put on and the barrel put into place. Okay, it's day 2 of the Trommel build. I got a really late start. I was so sore from working yesterday. I'm so out of shape. Anyways, it's really cold out this morning. It's about -13. It's about noon right now. So this morning, I was able to get a few pieces cut up. We'll get those pieces on now. These are the horizontal pieces that'll support the barrel from side to side. They're really overkill. They are a 5" by 10" I-beam. On my 4-foot trommel, I literally only have a 2" bar going across. So to put these beams on, they need to be tilted at 3/4 inch per foot. I created this template based off of my piece of paper. Holding it up, you simply trace that angle and all 4 corners will be the exact same. The downside to using scrap steel is sometimes this kind of stuff is in the way. So what I need to do is mark out where that I-beam is going and trim that off. With the backside all done, let's head to the front. Okay, we got the second one in. Before I go and put this barrel on, I want to put the power plant in this because it's going to sit right below the barrel. This is what we're going to be using for our power plant in the Trommel. This is an old stripped down light plant where the generator didn't work. So I took out all the accessories and made it into a hydraulic power pack. Almost everything is already hooked up. We've got a hydraulic tank, the hydraulic proportioning valve where you can adjust the speed of the trommel, and then all I have to do is mount the hydraulic motor and make an adapter plate to this bell housing. Another bonus is this fuel tank. This fuel tank is probably about 200 liters. This thing could probably last all summer on a single tank. What I'll do is cut this axle off and remove this front hitch, and I'll weld to the lower crossbar at the front. With the axles removed, we'll put this engine power pack in on this frame. You can see I just have a couple pieces of angle iron there for it to sit on, and the other side will sit on a jack for now. So I just went to put this thing in. I had to cut these fenders off. It was way too wide. Let's try this again. Okay, that went pretty smooth. Had a couple hang-ups, had to cut off the fire extinguisher mount. Also, this chain is in the way, so I had to set it down. We'll remove these slings now, get this thing sitting level, get it tacked into place. Okay, perfect. Let's do this. Looking at the proportions that I drew, the engine size is a little bit off. I always forget how big magnums are. Now, I want to point out, that's a 3-cylinder diesel. This thing is very overpowered for this 3-foot barrel. A person could get away with a 5 to 7 horsepower Honda in a gasoline over hydraulic system or a gasoline engine direct to a Radicon. With a 3-foot barrel, a guy would want to go with a 40-to-1 Radicon. So we've got the back mounts in place for the Magnum, both sides. These were just scrap pieces. They ended up just being the perfect 6 inches wide that I needed, so that'll work. Next up on the agenda, we need to get this barrel on. So what I'm gonna do is cut a small radius out of this piece, split this in half. We'll have one for the back, one for the front. We'll weld them on top of these I-beams. And what will happen is every time I go to lift this barrel off and back on, that cradle will reposition that barrel right where I need it. Now I need to find center in between the two beams at 68. So 34 is going to be our center. Okay, it's time to put this barrel in place. Just put some chains on it, we'll jump in the excavator, lift this thing up, stick it right where she needs to go. Okay, check that out. She's starting to look like a trommel. So check out how high the back of this barrel is. This is gonna work out great. I'm gonna have a lot of room for coarse tailing storage. I'm not even gonna have to dig a hole behind the skid. The other bonus of having it high is when I hang my sluice box off, I'm gonna also have a lot of storage for my fine tailings. This thing is just looking so cool right now. I'm just so excited, I can't wait to use it. So I think I'm done for today. I'm absolutely exhausted from yesterday. I'm so out of shape. Me sitting in an excavator all summer just did nothing. I'm sure the beers didn't help either. So let's do a tally. This power plant costed me $300 from an auction. I have also put about 10 hours into the hydraulic power pack and maybe $200 worth of material. I also picked up $200 worth of welding supplies just to stock up, so we'll add that on also. Anyways, see you in the morning. It's day 3, it snowed a little bit. We need to get rid of that snow on the skid so we can start building the hopper. We have our 2 beams pulled out. Initially, I was going to use a 6" by 6" square tubing, but I'm actually out of it. So we'll cut these beams up and use those. With the 2 diagonal beams cut, we need to measure from the back of the frame to the front of the frame, 18 feet, 9 inches. We have the 2 pieces just tacked into place. I'm just gonna lay some welds down there just so she's structurally sound and does not fall. Okay, we just did a full weld on the backside. That'll be plenty strong enough for me to carry on with the top. All right, I've got the end cap cut. I actually had to use a piece of channel iron for this. I'm running over this 4" piping. Next up, we'll do this side piece. This is where it'd be nice to have a third hand trying to twist this bar and tack it in. On to the next side. Okay, the second bar is in. They're just floating right now. So now we have to do this piece right here, and that'll give this a little bit more structure until we get all the plating in. Now I just need to plasma cut a hole in this top pipe. If you're wondering why I'm doing that, I'll tell you later in the episode. Of course, I always run out of welding wire right when I really need it. Okay, with the first one welded up, let's head to the second one. The second one is in. Next plan, do this crossbar. I don't have a piece that's 72 inches, so I'm just gonna join these 2. Now that that pipe is welded up, we can measure out 72 inches and give her a cut. Some temporary tabs just clamped on there. We'll come in and set that pipe right on. We'll weld her up and then on to the next one. Okay, we made some decent progress today. We got the hopper frame all done. A lot of these angles are very tricky to do, but if you just simply go off a piece of paper, have all your angles on there, it's easy. So that's the end of day 3. I put in 8 hours, No money involved today. Tomorrow, we just have a little bit of framework left over on the back. Now, it's time for a beer. Perfect. All right, it's the beginning of day 4. We have one quick little job that we need to button up, and that's to finish off the end of the frame. So what we need to do is get the ends ground up on these so we can weld, put them up top there. We'll use that angle iron, clamp it up top, use the excavator, sling it into place. This trick works quite well. With the angle iron clamped on, I will bring the extension piece in, set it on. I won't have to worry too much about lining this thing up. It gets a little bit tricky with an excavator and a sling. All right, first one's in. Let's head to the second one. Okay, we got the other side in. Now it's time to put in the back. The last thing we need to put in is this back structure. My drawing initially showed that it went from bar to bar, but looking at it, if it was right there, I'd have no room for the rocks to fall through. So what I'm gonna do is actually go up 45 across the top higher and then 45 back down. So we've got the last bar tacked on. Let's take a look at the progress that we made. That's looking pretty sweet in my opinion. These uprights here, I have to go to the scrapyard still and get some steel, and then same with the connectors at each end of the skid. All right, let's get this welded on. While he's finishing up the welding, let's do a tally for this episode. I put in another 2 hours this morning of fabrication, and he'll put in 2 more hours of welding. So that puts us at a total of 26 hours and $1,500 worth of money. On the next episode, we'll be plating in the hopper along with the flume that goes underneath this barrel. We'll also finish off the skid and a few miscellaneous items. So there's still a ton of work to be done. We'll catch you on the next one.